Go.
Hey there, guys. Welcome to Prisoners of Truth podcast, POT, as we so affectionately like to call it. It it is going to be episode 19 here on a Monday, and we're going to speak a little bit about where Justice Ginsburg has gotten off to. We're going to talk a little bit about the Rogan Jack Dorsey interview. Also going to go into late-term abortions and kind of the push from the left on that, and then we're going to give our views on nationalism versus patriotism. So stick around. That should be fun towards the end. I'm excited to hear Tommy's point of view, especially coming from the Eastern for me, but Western for Europe perspective. And as always, we have Samo with us, myself, Boone Doggle, and Tommy. So we're going to get right into it. And I think, old Gynsberg is MIA, huh?
I've heard that. I can't imagine that her health is probably too great. It's probably health related, right?
It's got to be. I mean, she's either dead or in a hospital.
She's dead. I hope not. That would be sad. But yeah, something's going on, and I mean, she might be negotiating her resignation for all we know. I don't know.
I highly doubt she's dead.
Yeah, she's probably not dead, but she's probably close to it.
Yeah, she's probably not really alive anymore either.
I guess the whole thing is we're going to find out tomorrow, because her absence at the State of the Union will tell us a lot. And if she shows up, we'll get to see her.
Yeah.
That's a big one. I'm excited for that. That'll be good news day tomorrow. I'm excited to see Trump standing in front of Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi going to be sitting right behind him.
I can't. Yeah, it'll be great. She'll be making all sorts of funny faces.
Yeah, she'll be playing with her dentures and playing with her mommy raps.
She's like your favorite one to take shots at, I think.
I swear to God, I hate Nancy Pelosi. She's evil. She's an evil woman. I mean, just the way she carries herself, the way she acts, the things that she says. It's like, can we just get somebody in politics who is like somebody who's not ancient, decrepit, and doesn't struggle through sentences, while with a mouthful of polydent? Like, that's all I really ask.
Oh man, that's great. Yeah. So who knows what's gonna happen with that? I want to know what you guys are predicting.
I didn't even know this is tomorrow. This is again, not an American, none of my business.
I did want to go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I read something on Wikipedia about Ginsburg today, which is back when Obama had the Senate, which I think the Republicans took it in 2010. They actually sort of pleaded with Ginsburg that she should step down.
Absolutely, they did.
Yeah, in order to assure that Obama can get another justice that is is left leaning like her, and she of course refused to do that because that sweet power is just
too much to just give up.
Too much to give up. And oh boy, this worked out great. I mean, for Trump, that is.
Oh yeah, he's gonna get 4.
Yeah, I wonder if she regrets that.
She has to. I mean, the last bitter end of her life has to be full of the most sort of piercing regret, because not only is it something on her end where, in her mind, I'm sure the way that she would describe the Trump presidency would be polar opposite to the way that I describe it and feel about it. Yeah, so she's experiencing something that's very negative. And on top of that, she could have prevented it all. I mean, look, all you had to do was step down and let Obama appoint somebody, and there you go. This isn't even an issue.
Yeah, I mean.
So beyond that, yeah. I thought that the fact that she's going to have to show up at the State of the Union is kind of put a capper on it, because it has been like 45 something days since she's been seen.
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah, and it's just weird. It's just like the same old pattern that we've seen over and over again, where it's like there's a scandal, the Democrats say we're not going to budge, nothing's going to happen, and they end up looking bad, and then like, you know, whatever Trump says was going to happen ends up happening anyway.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know, to me, when these things pop up, it doesn't like really strike like, I don't feel shocked or anything. I'm just like, all right, business as usual, you know, let's watch the same old pattern play out. Yep.
Joe Rogan's interview with Jack Dorsey, I thought, was the most sanitized thing he has ever put out.
Yeah, I finally watched it today. I watched it right after getting up, and I watched. I heard a lot of things about it, and I watched Tim Pool's video. I think he did at least one video about it, and I gotta say, it was not as bad as I expected it to be.
Okay.
It was just really, really boring. I already forgot everything about it.
Yeah, well, that was the remarkable thing that everybody's freaking out about is the fact that the hard questions weren't asked or pressed, which is, you know, not that, and I think somebody was saying earlier, like, I might have even been Tim Pool, or maybe it was Sargon who was saying, like, it's not that he wanted him to, like, press him and like make him leave and be mad and like be super aggressive, but just the normal Joe Rogan thing, because it's like he set a precedent about, you know, where he will ask and talk about hard things, because that's what his show's pretty much about. I mean, he's about parsing through issues and getting professional takes on it and being interesting. And it, like you said, it, for the leader of Twitter to be there and for it to be boring, that's the problem. That's the problem. I mean, he didn't, there was no there. I mean, there was, to me, I think it's just because of a conflict of interest. I mean, Jack Dorsey owns Square Inc., which owns Cash App, which is a, you know, they're an advertiser or at least a sponsor of the Joe Rogan program. So I think that's kind of the root.
Oh, really? Really? I didn't know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's odd. Yeah, he did ask about the Covington stuff, the harassment that is going on from the left, which I was actually surprised. I from what I heard, I didn't expect that this would even come up. He talked about Kathy Griffin and why she's not blocked, but Dorsey was a politician. He gave non-answers. His whole interview was softball question and non-answers.
Yes, and Rogan let those pass. I mean, he totally let him get away with those mealy-mouthed, unsatisfactory, non-answer answers, and that's, you know, that's what people are upset over.
I mean, because you know, Joe directly asked him, he was like, "Why did Alex Jones get banned?" And Jack's like, "I don't know." Like he said, he didn't know. And it's
you really, Jack Dorsey? Are you fucking kidding me? Get out of here.
And like, you know, just prior. You know, the week prior, we had the incident going on when trolls were telling laid off Huffington Post journalists that they need to learn to code. Like, anybody who was telling these journalists to code, you need to learn to code, they were getting banned, suspended, all this. And then, you know, a week prior to that, those same journalists were calling for the deaths of the Covington kids. And it's like, it's so backwards, you know? Like I don't get it. It's like, it's cool for them to threaten their political opponents, but as soon as anybody trolls them or pokes fun at them, it's like this great miscarriage to society for them.
100%. Well, it's a fragile nature of you know, of their ideology. It's not consistent at all.
No.
And they even admit it. The big tech giants are even admitting it now. Jack Dorsey said something akin to the same thing that that Conti had talked about, where it's the manifest observable behavior. You know, Jack Dorsey said we're not banning people for words, we're banning people for behavior. It's like, well, how fucking subjective is that? I mean, they're even bearing their souls and telling everybody, look, we're basically just feeling this out. There's no rules. The rules are whatever the fuck we want the rules to be. So you better be on our good side.
Yeah, I thought of the manifest observable behavior while watching the interview.
Yeah, I mean, and it's very careful language, and it's very crafted language, and what it means is, fuck you, we're gonna run our companies however we want. Fuck conservatives. If you don't think like me, you're not allowed. You know, and you better watch it, because you're you know, your behavior is gonna be judged a lot harsher than somebody who does think like me.
Yeah, and by the way, I wanted to mention that I just got my Twitter back. I was suspended for advising a laid off journalist to code, and I was suspended. Boom, like within 40 minutes. It was quite
Good advice
interesting.
to a high schooler is targeted harassment to Jack Dorsey.
Yes, yep, it is for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it'd be really interesting. Like, it'd be so interesting to hear Jack's like private conversations, like just to see what his actual
It would be
political
cool.
views are, because he's very slippery.
Yeah, very political. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, he's probably gonna run for office, and so
that would be terrifying.
yeah.
We don't
Jesus
really need
Christ.
technocrats in office.
Yeah, can you imagine the all these Silicon Valley types being the governments?
Well, that's the goal. That's what they want. I mean, like
That would be awful.
I feel like if I stepped into a time machine and I like went like a bit in the future, I'd like step out and I'd be like, "Who's president?" They'd be like, "Oh, we have Google." It's just Google. Like it's just Google. Like duh.
Oh yeah,
like,
Google does that. It's so true though.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's
we have Google.
It's weird. I could see a dystopian like neo-technocratic like feudalist society. Like that's what they would want,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's totally true. I mean, there's definitely a clear push by the sort of social engineers of Silicon Valley for a system of economics that will produce extreme haves and have-nots. So, they clearly are vying to be the haves, not the have-nots.
Right. But don't worry. I mean, Jack's all about inclusion. So, I mean, if he's got the power, it'll be okay. He's white. He's very privileged, and he's just going to bestow his, gracious nature upon the world. So, we can rest assured. It's okay.
Yeah. I've never read the Mark Zuckerberg wrote some sort of a manifest a while back, and I haven't read it because it's probably boring.
Yeah, probably. I mean, most manifestos are pretty boring. I mean,
and
it's definitely pretty dry.
Mr. Medica talked about it briefly on some stream, and he said apparently he read it, and apparently Mark Zuckerberg wants Facebook basically to rule the world. Apparently.
Well, again, he's certainly doing his best.
Yeah, he thinks that. Oh man, it's been a few months since I looked all this stuff up, but yeah, he has apparently this weird fantasy about Facebook being pretty much in charge of everything.
Ugh.
Because Facebook is doing so well right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and imagine my shock that a high-powered tech company mogul turns out to be almost like a literal supervillain. Like, imagine my shock.
Yeah. I mean, he is not human after all.
It's true. I've heard. Yeah,
He's
he's a strange dude.
Yeah, and he's Jewish. He's a Jewish reptilian.
Oh my gosh. A special breed.
Oh,
the alt-right really hates him.
Yeah. You ever see that? You've seen. I'm sure you've seen the Zuckerberg memes of him like doing things and people adding robotic sounds.
Yeah. Grilling the meats. We're gonna grill the meat, guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, he's a total fucking android. But
Mark Zuckerberg, he's a real boy.
Yeah.
TM. He's a real boy. TM.
He gave a talk once where he was on stage and he said, I was human.
Yeah, he's like, I was human. Yeah, I saw that.
I was human.
And then he's like, well, I am human.
That was incredibly awkward.
Yeah, in all fairness though, I think
he's just awkward.
It's just really antisocial and awkward.
Yeah, it's true. And I think Sargon was making a point today about this same thing as like a lot of the Silicon Valley guys are like just kind of like he said they're just kind of nerds, but I think that's kind of like the British interpretation of nerds, like which is like just like smart, brainy guys. I don't know.
Right.
Nerd means something different here. Like they're definitely not sweaty
Yeah.
Star Wars loving like, hairy men. They're like, you know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah,
highly
right.
technical and they're highly intelligent.
Yeah, it's
And
like
they live
it's
in a world where it's a little bit separate. You know what I mean? It's not really the same world as maybe their users.
so like the term when they're using it, it's more like academically competent, basically.
Well,
Is that
yeah,
what they're
and
saying? Yeah.
technical.
And
Really highly
right,
technical.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, he said they're a bunch of nerds, and that's, I mean, can definitely be attributed to part of, not just Zuckerberg's awkwardness or Jack Dorsey's seemingly inability to answer hard questions, but just in general with the way that Silicon Valley like responds to things. I can definitely see that, but it's definitely not an excuse, and definitely needs to be called out at every turn. But I mean, actually, the next thing kind of connects to this too, because one of the big things that these people are pushing, and with the help of Silicon Valley and all of their very liberal progressive friends, is this sort of late term abortion concept, which when polled, most Americans, I don't know how it is in Germany, but I mean you can't really find many Americans who are pro-abortion past I think it's like I don't know, second trimester, you know what I mean? Somewhere right in the middle. I don't like. There's some people who like are really strict, not after 3 weeks, but it's usually somewhere in the middle.
In Germany, it's 3 months, 12 weeks.
3 months. Yeah, there you
12
go.
weeks without anyone being in danger. I think I don't know if the mother's life is threatened. It's longer. I'm pretty sure it's longer, but it's probably not up until birth. It's probably second trimester, because usually I'm not a doctor. I'm not a female. I never had a baby, but I assume that if something like this were to happen, you probably know this by the time the second trimester is over.
Yeah, and I mean, I am fully willing to admit that there are probably some minuscule scenarios that, if laid out in front of me, I would be morally okay with, some form of late abortion. But the fact of the matter is that's not what is being pushed for on the progressive left right now. I mean, what's being pushed for is pretty much on-demand abortions up till birth, even after birth. I mean, like to the point where like if they're killing it in the birth canal and they fail and then it ends up getting born, I mean, they're literally just going to kill the baby, which I think I don't know who is supporting this. You know what I mean? Other than the politicians and the extreme progressives. I really don't know who is for this.
Well, didn't they say something that, were they saying that nurses could perform these procedures too now? Which is like, which is crazy. But to me, so here's the paradox, or like the ridiculous part of this. The thing that's ridiculous to me is the far left, they're very anti-gun, very anti-Second Amendment. How dare you have guns? Guns kill people. But then they would celebrate, that you could basically murder babies. And to me, I feel like you can't have it one way or the other. If you want to have this, in my mind, you should respect other people's right to own a gun.
Yeah, hang on. I have a quote from what's his name? Ralph Northam, which is the Blackface governor from Virginia.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Quote, so in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered, the infant would be kept comfortable, the infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired, and then a discussion would ensue between the physician and the mother. Unquote.
Yeah, a discussion about how we're going to sell your baby's body parts to a moral tech company.
First of all, we are talking about a born thing that is alive on its own. Second, why even this? The infant would be kept would be resuscitated if that's. I have to Google resuscitate. That means brought back to life, right?
Yeah.
Why would you bring it back to life only to then have a discussion about whether you are going to kill it again?
I think Yeah, I think the structure of that sentence is confusing because the way, but I think kind of what he meant was not that we're gonna resuscitate the baby no matter what, but that if like if
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is
he
what the
said.
mom wants. But I
Yeah,
do
he said it.
understand the way he says it makes it sound exactly like that. It's like in his attempt to try to like make what he's really talking about sound palatable, he actually just made it sound worse.
Yeah, I kind of get it. If you want to have a discussion about it, you can. The child needs to be alive while we have this discussion, because otherwise you can't have this discussion because it's gonna be
Exactly.
dead. Still, it's weird, but of course, on the other hand, this guy is of course against the death penalty, because yeah, of course he's a Democrat. if you murder someone, then you can be executed, because this would be a violation of human rights. On the other hand, killing a baby, and I sort of get it if this is literally a baby who has no chance whatsoever of having any sort of humane life. Basically, if it's basically born without a brain or something. I get where they're coming from. This doesn't change the fact, however, that you are killing a baby.
No, yeah, it doesn't change the fact. Even in those scenarios where maybe some people would say that's acceptable. Even in that scenario, you are correct. It's still infanticide, and it's also not the only context in which these laws that they're pushing for would allow such infanticide. Because at this point, it doesn't have to be a baby born without a brain or some horrific thing that nobody wants to put anybody through. It could be the mother's mental state. It could be the dad ran out on her 2 weeks ago on a 9-month pregnant woman, and she doesn't want to do it alone. It could be her dad just died. Her dog just died. Her gerbil just died. I mean, literally, whatever you can get a doctor to certify as mental stress is a reason for you to kill a perfectly viable baby at this point with this law or with these laws.
Yeah, the mental health thing is just mind blowing to me. What this doesn't mean anything. This can mean anything you want it to.
Exactly. It's almost eerily similar to the like, well, we're gonna judge you based on your behavior, not on the words
exactly.
you say.
This is
It's like, whatever the fuck I want it to be.
Again.
Yeah, exactly. It's whatever I want. And you know what? Ultimately, is that not all an authoritarian really wants? Complete control.
To me, like the thing that worries me is as people progress on this scale, where like it was unheard of, like the thought of like late-term abortions. It was kind of unheard of even a few years ago, and it's like if we can rapidly change something like that, make a decision on how we deal with life, what else are we going to be pushing further down the road? You know what I mean? Are we going to have I'm being facetious here, but are we going to have like tribunals for white men where they decide, oh, we're going to have to like put them down or not? Like you know what I mean? Like how far are they,
it's a
how
silly
far are they
thing.
going to take it?
It's a silly thing to say, but it's also not an unreasonable thing to ask in the context of what we're talking about, because ultimately what we're talking about is not far removed from that. And yeah, it sounds silly when you say it like that, but it's really scary how close to that it actually is, and it's really scary how much flexibility the language that people are using, who are pushing these sorts of things, is. I mean, to the point where you really need to look and understand what people are doing, especially people in power and people who are pushing for things, and you can't listen to them. It's impossible. Because if you listen to them, you would have a complete misconception of what they're actually talking about. Because the words they're using are so deceptive that they don't even correlate at all to what they're actually physically doing in the real world.
Also, I hate to be the guy, but this killing babies based on birth defects, etc. That's stuff that the literal Nazis did. That's actual Nazi shit right there.
Yeah, eugenics. We'll talk about Nazis and eugenics. I mean, we got to talk about Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood. I mean, absolute gems of the political progressive left, literal racist eugenicists, hell bent on the destruction of black people. Like how?
Fun fact. Planned Parenthood donated $3 million to Northam's election campaign.
That's right.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, I'm really shocked.
Yeah.
Color me shocked.
That's wild.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I mean, these people, I was actually thinking about this earlier too, because, everybody talks, oh, Nazi this, Nazi that. Well, like, there's no Nazis anymore. Like, it was a German political party in the early 19th century. Like, I don't care what you think about
20th
anybody.
century.
Sorry, the 20th century, excuse me. But it's a dead thing. I don't care. Even if you're a neo-Nazi, you're not a Nazi. You're a neo-Nazi. You know what I mean? It's something completely
Yeah,
different. So I'm just so
yeah.
sick of the distinction, because the people who use it are running around acting like they're wearing a brown shirt, in 1928. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild stuff. And it goes to show, like, it's just interesting to see this transformation where, like, citizens are being pitted against each other, and like you actually have these like civilians acting as foot soldiers for the left. It's just really
Yeah, it's
strange
kind of always
times.
been their ploy, though, right? I mean, the KKK was what that was the entire thing about the KKK was to harass Republicans
Right.
and black people.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like they've always, and I think it kind of just comes down to the fact that bad ideas always require some element of force.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you
Yeah,
can't.
of course.
I mean, you
And deception.
exactly, and these are the things that they trade in, because guess what? They have bad ideas. It's
Right.
just straight up.
Yeah, I think there was some story. I forget. It was somewhere on the East Coast that there was like, maybe it was a few weeks ago, some failed like bomb plot like at a police station. Antifa was gonna, they wanted to attack a police station or something.
I think this was the police station. I think this might have had some connection with
The guy who got shot at the
yeah
school, I think it does.
the
Yeah, the
school
Antifa guy.
shooter that the left protested against being shot.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I mean,
They literally went on the street to protest a fucking school shooter getting shot by cops. This is how fucking insane these people are.
yeah, it's not even an exaggeration. Like, I listen to what
Yeah.
you're saying, and I want to say, like, well, no, like, there's a more moderate stand. Like, that's not really, like, come on, no, that's
Yeah.
actually what's going. Like you can't really even sugarcoat that. Like, that's really honestly what happened. Now you can look at it and say, okay, well, it was a domestic dispute, whatever. He changed his daughter's school without telling the mother of the daughter, and then he shows up with a gun and is arguing with cops, whatever. He was at a school with a gun, shot at cops on the
Yeah.
school property. Like, what? I mean, and he's your hero? Okay, great. Really great job, guys.
Yeah, this just goes to show again that these people do not have any principles. It's whoever is on our side can do no wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the danger. They think they have the like intellectual upper hand on these things, because for the longest time, the left has kind of been that intellectual kind of side to these things, but it's like all of that's gone out the window, and you've got these people that think they're just on the right side of things. They're just resting in their gut feeling, that the left is right as usual, and they're just making complete idiots of themselves. And it's like you need to have the critical thinking to be able to analyze what's going on and change your course. But yeah,
I just remembered something because Boone said something about people being pinned against each other. Researching nationalism, I found something very interesting, namely bourgeois nationalism. In Marxism, bourgeois nationalism is the practice by the ruling classes of deliberately dividing people by nationality, race, ethnicity, or religion as to distract them from initiating class warfare. Wait, who does that right now? Weird.
Yeah, the Marxists.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's the thing is I've got a friend who studied Marxism, very like for years and years, and he was like telling me, he's like, I've got friends that call themselves Marxists and they're not even Marxists. They don't even know what it is. Like, I'm not even saying Marxism is a good thing, but yeah, a lot of these people, they kind of don't know what it is. You know what it is. I think what we're seeing, especially in America, is it's like the results of just like a bad schooling system, kind of like Prince of Queens was saying in his particle board video. And I just think a lot of people aren't very well informed on communism, all these things.
Sure, intentionally so in a lot of ways, you know, and you know, I don't want to sound like a tinfoil wearing Alex Jones type figure, but it's not that hard to actually look and see and understand that, you know, people who control federal school systems are not the people with your best interest in mind as a child or as a parent. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that. It doesn't have to go any further. It doesn't have to be, you know, spies or bad people doing things in schools.
No.
Or
Right.
it's literally the structure of the system does not have the best interest of learning in mind. And, you know, it's like that same concept applies to almost anything public, in my opinion. It's just like any public bureaucracy is just destined to be despotic, authoritarian, rat hole, because it's impossible for a structure like that to function long term on the same level of keeping people's best interests in mind as those individuals. You know, there's no system of people you can put over somebody's livelihood and come out better than what that person would have done with their livelihood, especially when you get it when you get all kinds of power wrapped up in it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
So I think that transitions us good into nationalism versus patriotism.
Yeah. We didn't talk about the blackface thing with Northam.
Okay.
Which is it's quite quick, actually. Yeah, he this is where I'm gonna put my tinfoil hat on. It's fascinating that this happened like 5 seconds after this whole late-term abortion thing came about. And now no one is talking about that abortion stuff anymore, and everyone talks about this blackface bullshit. It's almost as if someone was trying to steer attention away from this late-term abortion shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, and then the Covington thing was going on, right? Like during the beginnings of the abortion stuff as well, right? If I remember correctly.
I'm not entirely sure, but I think this abortion stuff came right when Covington was basically over with.
Well, yeah, I've seen that pattern over the years, where when there's like some really important thing going on, some bullshit story gets like pops up in the news.
Yeah, in Germany they tend to make weird authoritarian laws every time there's a football world championship or in Olympic Games or something.
Okay, yeah.
While people are distracted.
Sure. I mean, authoritarians are going to move when the time is right, you know, shadows and all that. But yeah, I mean, Northam obviously had some racy stuff in his past, but yeah, like I don't care. Like the thing is, like I could care less about the blackface and the KKK outfit because it's like he's obviously not a racist, and like he obviously didn't mean that in a racist way. Even in the 80s, he didn't mean it as a racist way, and it's like I just think it's funny to watch people like that prostrate themselves before a system that only wants to chew them up. Because look, the dude bent over 10 ways to Sunday, backwards, sideways, front ways, all ways he could to bend and haw. When the only real true way to respond to that is to say, look, that happened. I'm not even sorry about that. That wasn't racist. I'm not a racist. Fuck you. If you don't respond like that, then you're dead. You're dead in the water. I mean, you're absolutely dead because you're admitting to something you didn't do. And then you're dealing with people who will never let you live that down.
Yeah, but he's quote unquote a quote unquote progressive. He's not gonna say, "Yeah, I did that. Whatever. Fuck you." He's of course he's gonna apologize and he did. This is another one of these weird apology things where first he apologized. I think he said, "Yeah, that's me." Then he said, "Yeah, that's actually not me." But there were other instances where I did wear blackface. Why would you say that?
So dumb.
Why? Are you retarded? Are you stupid? What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, I cannot imagine the thought process that led him down the path of those thoughts. Like, what? Like,
Yeah, this is like if what's his name? Kavanaugh, right? The judge.
Right, yeah.
This is as if Kavanaugh was like, I didn't rape Ford, but I raped this other chick you don't know about.
Oh my gosh.
it is ridiculous.
Yeah, right.
It's the same thing, and it makes no sense. Like,
Yeah.
who are his PR people?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested to see like what's gonna go on. Like we're like, can't believe we're entering like 2020 election season.
Coming up,
and all
man.
that.
Yeah, this is gonna be a nightmare. 2 fucking years of this bullshit.
It's gonna be crazier than even 2020 or 2016. I swear.
Oh yeah, yeah. I heard Cory Booker's running. And
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you heard of. He's got some interesting scandals that
Well,
I heard about.
Look, there's nobody who can run against Trump in this field and win. There's just
Oh, no.
nobody.
No.
Yeah, the Tim Pool talked about the fact that Trump's gonna win. There's no way that any one of these Democrats is gonna win because the Democrats will rip each other to shreds because they will try to out progressive each other, and
Yeah.
every time one of them makes one tiny little mistake in terms of like racism, in terms of all the isms. All the other ones would say, yeah, look at this, something is, I'm not that, and this is gonna go, round
It's gonna
and
go
round
on and
round.
on, and it's already
Yeah.
started because all of these people. It's like it's exactly how you just said, Tommy, except for it's worse because it's not even the fact that they have to wait for things to happen. Every single one of these people already has skeletons in their closet that they've
Yeah.
either apologized for or haven't apologized for, and every single one of them is looking to tear those skeletons out, drag them across the field, and just destroy each other. You know what I mean? And so. It's totally right. It's going to happen exactly the way you said it, except for they're not going to have to wait on anything. It's all the dirt. It's already there. Like, it's already there. These people are adults. Tulsi. I mean, look, half of them have literally already apologized for innocuous, silly things they've said in the past. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, Trump made this is fascinating when you think about it. Trump made Elizabeth Warren tank her own fucking campaign before she even got into the campaign, before she even announced that she's gonna run for president, simply by fucking shit posting her on Twitter. This is
Well, I mean, that's what you do. Like Trump, like kind of like he knows it's like the battle that she's fighting. He knows it's bad, so he's gonna say whatever he needs to say to get into her ego. That's gonna make her think I'm gonna prove him wrong, but she's like going exactly down the road he wants.
Yeah, and well, that's
Yeah.
part of what makes his enemies so easy to defeat. Is they're so easy to bait. They're so easy to predict. They're really not very sophisticated in the way of responding to the way that he conducts himself as a politician.
Well, I mean, what we had 8 years of presidential professional like Obama, where like you wouldn't dare address any beefs like publicly. You know what I mean? And so
Sure.
the status quo is like you just don't talk about these things, and then Trump just comes in like, yeah, I'm just a guy, like, and it's just, yeah, the way he's dealing with it is great. I mean, if I was like running for something right now, I would like the trollish nature in me. Like one of my policies that I'd push for is pushing for programs to teach students to code in school.
You'd probably get reelected.
Yeah. That would be so good.
And for make a special exception for journalists,
For journalists, but no, make it infomercial about like journalists are a population that we need to help, but kind of explain it like they're like retarded,
Yeah. So Northam's screwed because he's a progressive, and you can't apologize to these people, and that's all he has. That's the only card he has to play. And beyond that, he wants to kill babies. So he's kind of fucked, isn't he?
Yeah. It's just the more they push for that, the worse their no guns argument looks. It's just great. It's
totally.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on to nationalism versus patriotism. I would like for you to start out, Tommy, if that's okay, because I think I'm most interested to hear what you have to say on it, just to get your perspective, and also because it's kind of your idea. So.
Yeah, the one of the things that that kind of made me want to dive into this a little bit, into the actual definitions, was that I've seen some left-wing idiot on a dating site for guys post something to the effect, which I've seen quite a bit lately, namely there's something like nationalism is actually the worst form of patriotism or something like that, which is funny considering that left-wingers don't care about either of these two. But yeah, diving into this, almost every definition of nationalism that I found was negative. Was yeah, my country is better than your country,
But then patriotism is looked at good, right?
yeah. And I through all the definitions that I found, I wrote something that the way I define it.
Okay.
I'm gonna put all the links to the different definitions, etc., in the
show notes.
Yeah. Okay, so nationalism is the belief in a nation's right to self-determination. It holds that each nation should govern itself free from outside interference. This is a completely neutral statement. There is no value judgment or moral judgment towards any nation. This is basically just, there's a nation, it exists, it's a thing. Advocacy or support for political independence of a particular nation or people, policy or doctrine of asserting the interests of one's own nation viewed as separate from the interests of other nations or the common interests of all nations. Basically, it is the country version of individualism. That's what it is, nothing else. Yeah. Patriotism, devoted love, support, and defense of one's country, national loyalty or pride, devotion to and vigorous support for one's country. Patriotism or national pride, exactly, patriotism is national pride in my opinion, that's how I would define it, is the feeling of love, devotion, and sense of attachment to a homeland and alliance with other citizens who share the same statement. This is not neutral nationalism anymore. This is the nation exists and it's a good nation. And then lastly, chauvinism, which I would specify national chauvinism, because what you usually associate chauvinism with is male supremacy,
Yes.
basically. Chauvinism is the belief in national superiority and glory, zealous and aggressive patriotism, or blind enthusiasm enthusiasm for military glory, blind belief that your country is the best or most important. This is the nation exists and it's fucking better than yours. That's basically it. Nationalism, there's a nation. Patriotism, there's a nation and it's a good nation. Chauvinism, there's a nation and it's the best nation. Mine is better. That's basically it.
Well, I'm a U.S. chauvinist then.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. Go ahead.
I found a nice essay that talks about 4 different kinds of nationalism, which is ethno-nationalism, which
we all know. Yeah, we've been hearing about that for a long.
Yeah, this is
4 years.
Your nationalism based on your ethnicity, basically. National socialism was Aryan nationalism. Religious nationalism is self-explanatory. These are 2. And I am completely against any sort of nationalism that is based on identity politics, on anything identity politics. That's not my thing. And the last 2 are civic nationalism and ideological nationalism, and I'm a mix of these 2. Civic nationalism here is described as at the This form of nationalism is centered on the idea of a non-xenophobic society which shows tolerance for all its individuals and strives to provide equality and social justice. A particular example of this can be found in Singapore, where the government's strategy for development derived directly from civic nationalism and globalization. And ideological nationalism is self-governance. Basically, based on more traditional stuff, cultural and traditional stuff, and I'm a mix of these two. I'm a civic nationalist in the sense of I like the Wikipedia definition. Civic nationalism, also known as liberal nationalism, is a form of nationalism identified by political philosophers who believe in an inclusive form of nationalism that adheres with traditional liberal values of freedom, tolerance, equality, and individual rights. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's no identity politics in here, except for if you define, if you build an identity on, for example, freedoms, basically, actual liberalism.
Yes.
Only in a national confined space, not globalism. The difference between nationalism and globalism is basically the country version of individualism versus collectivism, or capitalism versus communism. Hang on a second, I gotta cut my cat.
Aww. I understand that that urgent need to stop a cat from doing something.
I'm back. I'm back.
All right.
So I don't think my nation is supreme. I just accept.
Well, here's
I would explain it relatively simple with homes, with houses. I want my own home. This doesn't mean that I think that my house is some sort of superior masterpiece, or that my house doesn't have problems. I want everyone to have their own house. I don't want to control anyone else's house, and I don't want anyone else to control my house.
Yeah, that's a very good explanation. And for me, like, I consider myself a civic nationalist, and the way I see it is, I want a government, I want a culture that promotes being like grateful and responsible, like living in a dignified way. If you really think about that, everybody who participates in a country, like you don't want to look at it as your country's supreme, but like I said before, you got to look at it. It's helpful to look at it like a competition, sort of like a game. Everybody comes together and they try to promote their country the best they can, and they do it in a dignified and, like, I guess, responsible way. Like, I mean, that's why I'm kind of on the right now, is because I'm just calling for responsibility.
Yeah, nationalism is basically a free market solution. Yeah, the countries that are better will thrive.
Right. Yeah, thrive.
Well, I think even if they don't, it's at least they'll be not thriving by their own devices. Like at the very least, it's not like they're suffering from their own. Because I mean, I can imagine a scenario where you could have the most nationalist system ever, and there's still going to be some countries that have a lot of really bad problems. You know what I mean?
Right.
And for example, Nazi Germany.
Yeah. Exactly.
Nazi Germany was there's a Wikipedia article. I'm also going to put that in the description. I don't have it open right now. It talks about a lot more different sorts of nationalisms. And one of them, for example, is expansionist nationalism. I'm also not I have no interest whatsoever in expanding the German borders, for example. Quite the opposite, actually. I'm a Bavarian nationalist. I want to be.
You want to separate?
I'm a separatist.
The South will rise again.
You're
Well, I wanted to say, but yeah, that's the other thing is when you say nationalism, people equate it to like jingoism, or they seem to equate it to like expansionism. Yeah,
jingoism would fall in the chauvinism category.
Right. But yeah, I mean that's not at all what Trump is. I mean, people try to act like that's what it
opposite.
is. Yep.
Yeah. Again, if you look at the definitions of nationalism, they are all negative. They are the basic definitions of believing in national sovereignty. Wikipedia has that, and in the dictionaries, it's either not there at all or it's like position 4 or 5. The first ones are always basically a light form of chauvinism. Yeah, my country is better. And I don't think that. I actually think most nationalists, unless you have like actual ethno-nationalists, but most people who just identify as I'm a nationalist, period, with no prefix, would probably not think of themselves that way, and I don't either.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think you've done a really good job of breaking down nationalism as a whole, and my only question would be, I guess I have a question for you, and then I'll kind of answer it myself. But like, how would you feel about like objectively? Okay, there's just the country that's just the best. Like, by every, I'm not saying it's America. I'm just saying, picture the country in your nationalist world, in our nationalist world. Is just objectively the best by all the measures, all the counts. Would you see it as something okay and normal to understand that and to accept that as like your worldview?
Yeah, if again there is such a thing as a metric and actual data. Yeah, for example, I don't have the data now because I only thought about it like last few minutes before the stream about Bavaria. Bavaria is, if you look at the data, a better country than Germany. Bavaria has the of all these states in Germany, of all these 16 states, Bavaria has the lowest crime rate, has the highest case closing rates. I don't know how to say this. The lowest
conviction rate for crimes.
Conviction rate, exactly. The lowest unemployment rate. What else? One of the best school systems, because school systems are states and not federal. This is actual data that you can look at. Oh yeah. And Bavaria also has the highest IQ. And it is, if you look at the parliament, it has the most right-wing parliament, which
it's almost like meritocracy leads to like sound morals and sound ideology, whereas taking things that you don't deserve is evil.
And there's this thing called Länderfinanzausgleich, which means which is state socialism. States that make more money give money to states that make less money.
A version of that is how they run Canada too.
Yeah. So yeah, why should I give? I mean, not I, because I'm a lazy fuck, but I mean the Bavarian citizen. Why should the Bavarian citizen give money to other states in Germany, just to left-wing states who have no fucking clue how to handle money, how to invest properly, how to not shit that no one needs? Why? What do I as a Bavarian, or what does Bavaria as a country, quote unquote, gain from being part of Germany? Nothing. It would be better off. It would be a more successful country if it would stop being part of Germany, and if it would stop being part of the European Union and the Euro.
Yeah, so I mean, and all that being said, it's like, I feel like just anytime anybody has feelings or just opinions that resonate like that, just to even make the distinction between good and bad to these people is literally evil and racist to them. Like it's like that you can't do that. That's not allowed. And so I guess that's just kind of where I was getting at with my question, because I was joking a little bit earlier when I said I'm an American chauvinist, but I am definitely an American nationalist, and whatever problems we have, I feel like need to be solved in-house and in opposition to globalism, because pretty much every single aspect of globalism is subversive to national interests on a global scale, and it's like the greatest version of the quote unquote greater good, which I don't know is absolutely always to the end of time going to end up hurting people and sacrificing everything in the name of whatever your crazy ass ideology is. I mean, you just are totally removed from what it is. Well, what's actually going on here? You've become totally disconnected from your life as a human. You've become something evil and controlling. You've become an authoritarian. Congratulations.
Yeah, as far as best country in the world goes, if I could choose one country that I could be a citizen, it would be the United States. It's not even a question. The US has a handful of problems that are really big. For example, I watched a lot of true crime shit lately again, like for example Live PD.
Oh yeah,
the first 48, and it just seems like America has giant mental health problem.
Oh yeah, for sure. You
Which
think?
absolutely fascinates me, because I have no idea why.
Dude, I like that's like some MK Ultra stuff. There's mind control's a real thing, dude. There's definitely experiments going on, I feel like, here when it comes to medication and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's my Alex Jones little moment, but sorry.
I have to put my tinfoil hat on, but
like school shootings. There's a link to like psychotropic drugs.
Totally.
And all these
and the
things,
SSRIs, you're totally right. And the funniest thing is like, it sounds like on the face of it, like, wow, I can't believe he would say or think that. Like why would anybody, like, of course that's not happening. But then you go back and you look at like the actual history of the CIA and all the actual like stuff that really has happened and really did happen, all the testing on populations, all the LSD weird mind control stuff they did.
And look at Joe Rogan. He's constantly selling psychedelics, in a way, like, not pushing them on people, but kind of bringing awareness to the quote unquote benefits. And it's kind of odd that somebody like that is the mouthpiece for those things, because when you look at, stuff with psychedelics, a lot of the research was CIA driven in the 60s and all that.
And it's like it, and it's just not something that on the face of it people want to believe or understand. And it's something on the face of it people are very quick to dismiss, because nobody wants to believe that. Nobody wants to think that is actually what's going on with your taxpayer money. But on some level, it probably is. I mean, it would be. And it's not to say, you can't look at the past things and say, oh, it's definitely happening right now. But you could look at the past things and let them inform your opinion on what's happening today. It's not impossible. It's not crazy. It's, you can't take that first like knee jerk, like, oh, no way. Because it's not, I mean, that's not the world we live in. We live in a fucked up world.
Yeah, you can look at the past things that actually happened, that we know that happened, and you can look at the way that you can look at things that are happening today, and you can make connections.
Yeah, just
connections
like
are true is a different story, but it is history has proven that it's not unthinkable.
Right.
Exactly.
I
I mean,
don't.
even like recent history too. It's not like, it's not the Assyrians we're talking about. We're talking about the 1960s and 50s. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Right.
I don't actually think that they are putting chemicals in the water to make
No. Right.
people go nuts, but
well, fluoride is a real thing. I mean, they do put fluoride in water,
Well.
and there are some measurable effects of fluoride. I don't think it's that dramatic.
Well.
I mean, if it
One.
was very dramatic, everybody's constantly drinking tap water. So if it was super
Yeah.
dramatic, I think everybody would be really aware of it, right?
No.
I mean, like,
But I think it's linked to just like, like social scientists and all that. I mean, I recommend you guys watch an Adam Curtis documentary called The Century of the Self. But basically, what that whole documentary talks about is how social scientists sort of transformed society, based upon Freudian principles. And I think like with the thing, we got like, big pharmaceutical companies. So I think when like depression and all that kind of spiked up, like, because of our system, doctors were kind of pushing these experimental drugs. So I don't think it's necessarily, this sinister thing where they're like, let's push drugs on people. I just think, it's probably a combination of very complicated things going on.
it is, and I think it's also really it's described well with all of these sort of negative things in our society. I mean, it permeates the school system, the pharmaceutical industry, government, finance. This whole thing we're talking about, we have been talking about. It's not, in my mind. I mean, some people will say it's a cabal of people. Some people will say it's the Jews. For me, it's more powerful, like-minded people working towards their own interests that happen to be in the same boat. The banking cartels and the pharmaceutical industries and the government establishment are all a sort of symbiotic parasite that lives off of free men, free people who go out and produce. They've sort of hijacked systems of human life that are meant to kind of keep maintenance going, to keep people going. They're not meant to do anything. They're meant to like finance, lending money. You're supposed to be. It's supposed to be a way to have um, people able to borrow money. It's supposed to be a way to actually have a banking system. It's not supposed to be fractional reserve central banking. Fractional reserve central banking is not what banking is supposed to be. It's this fantasy of fiat madness. Essentially the concept that banks can lend out more money than they have in reserve. Because why? And the federal government's going to print a central currency because why? They've hijacked something that is very powerful and very innate to how people work. And it looks from where we're standing like, oh yeah, okay, it could just be all the Jews, or it could just be all these people, or it's just this cabal of these bad people. But in reality, it's sick systems that need to be cleansed and need to be actually brought back to a level where they're working for people. And again, I'm not saying that everybody's in on it. It's just something where powerful, bad people who are using these hijacked systems to enrich themselves have very, very similar goals. And you can see it played out.
You're hitting me with some 2010 nostalgia. 2010, those were the days when I was really getting into researching the banking systems and the Fed and all that stuff because of the banking crisis that happened. But sorry, Tommy, go ahead.
What I was gonna say is, first of all, what I thought about a lot lately is in the Dark Ages you had basically all the power concentrated in churches. Churches were basically your life. They were basically the government. And since people get more and more atheistic and less religious, I think governments have just become the next step in the evolution. The same people that are now in governments and run the Federal Reserve and run countries and run the media, quote unquote. These are the same people that like 500 years ago would have just been priests.
Clergy. They'd been the
bishops,
clergy.
yeah.
No, you're right. You're totally right. It's a clergy of a secular religion that worships consumerism. And I say that I realize that I sound like some pink-haired communist, but you don't have to hate the free market to understand that modern society is definitely worshiping something that's not in the church. And it's, to me, it looks like consumerism. Take that for bad or worse. I personally think I would rather live in a time where people worship consuming goods than, like, I don't know, God or whatever churches. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, it sounds so bad, and like everybody's like, oh, consumerism and worshiping this is like bad. It's like, well, I'm not sacrificing a goat or my child. I'm pretty much just eating McDonald's and going to Walmart. Like, what's so fucking bad about that?
Yeah, okay. Depends on the impact on the environment and slave labor and all that shit.
Well, I don't buy Apple.
Yeah, I don't buy Apple either.
Yeah, and I've left the Apple ship recently, so never going back.
I never had an Apple product. I also never paid a single cent for Star Wars.
Really?
I'm probably the only person on the planet who never paid for Star Wars.
Oh my goodness. Well, guys, I have got to get myself ready, and I'm gonna go out and do some stuff tonight. But it's been fun. It always is. I really enjoy our little podcast here. It's
for sure.
It might not be Joe Rogan, but God damn it, we're not sellouts.
We're not sellouts. Yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. If this blows up, then maybe we'll become sellouts one day.
Yeah, as soon as the Jews buy us.
That's right. That's right. We're currently on auction for any Jews listening.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
For any globalists, if some English globalists want to buy our podcast, if Google wants to buy our podcast for $5 billion.
Yeah, do it. Just do it now.
Yeah. Get it on the ground floor, Google.
Yeah.
Well, all right, guys. Well, it's been fun.
All right. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for listening.